Hi, everybody. It's time for Nature Connections. Hi, everybody. It's time for Nature Connections, a Be Live stream show here on Star Nation's live stream shows on Be Live TV and Facebook Land. Someday I'll get that all right. I'm your host, Minnie Kansman, and today our show is all about the autumnal equinox. The equinox that's coming up here, it's September 22nd this year. It comes in at 7:30 a.m. Mountain Time, which for you in the Eastern time frame is 9:30 in the morning. So a decent time to actually do some type of celebration for the autumnal equinox. And equinox is really about, for me, honoring the Earth's cycles, the cycles that the Earth makes on our annual basis, and like paying attention to the moon cycles, paying attention to the equinoxes and the solstices has great meaning for me and connects me and grounds me with Mother Earth in an even deeper way. So today I'd like to share with you the different ways that you could create a celebration for equinox, or maybe ways that you already do, but you could enhance them, and different reasons about why we would want to do that at this time of year. But before we get going, I'm going to just take a minute here, and I'll ask you to share my show, share the show with someone you think that might be interested in this topic. It's very timely. I chose to do it because I wanted to give you guys time to set up your own celebration, your own ceremony, your own way to celebrate. And so you have almost a whole month here to come up with some ideas and plan. And a lot of this does that I'm going to share with you does take a little bit of planning, a little bit of forethought on your part, because of the ritual that we're doing that will affect you in your physical and spiritual life. I see Neshi in the chat room. Hi, Neshi. It's good to see you today. Your show was great last night. I love that show about staying in the present moment, even when you don't feel like it. That was really good. And today we're gonna be talking about a moment in time, the equinox, and the special timing of that too. There's one ritual that actually uses the exact time of the equinox to do your ritual. And like I said, it's at a great time in the morning for us in the United States this year. It's not always. Sometimes I'm setting alarms at 1:30 in the morning to do a ritual, or 3 in the morning, or trying to stay up late till midnight to do something. So this year's easier. Who else is here? Angelina Crow. Hi. Thanks for joining us, Angelica, it looks like. So, like I said, this year's equinox is on September 22nd. Sometimes it's on the 23rd. Sometimes it's on the 22nd. You just have to check with the internet's great for that now. There's always a table that'll tell you what year, what time in your time zone it will take place. And a lot of times in Europe it's happening on the 23rd, and here it's happening on the 22nd. It all depends on where you're at too. So check that out. So the equinox is all about balance, because it's the time of year when we have that day, we have 12 hours of sunlight and we have 12 hours of nighttime. So there's a true balance that's happening at this time of year, and we're coming into that. We're a month away. We're coming into that time of balance. So looking at the concept of balance is very helpful right now as we wind down from summer and we're moving into that cooler days of fall into autumn. And I want to say in the southern hemisphere, everything's flipped. So they're doing their spring equinox while we're doing our fall one. So taking time to look at balance. And it's interesting that my business's name is Eco Balance, Humanity and Harmony with Nature. And my husband's business is called Life in Balance. And he talks about balance a lot. One of his sayings I love is you're either heading towards balance or you're heading away from balance. Staying in that place of perfect balance, I know Neshi's husband does the egg balancing on the table for every equinox. I'm excited to see him do it this year. But there's just that second when everything's in really super balance that you can balance that egg on its nose on the tabletop. But the rest of the time we're moving in or out. So we're consciously trying to recreate getting back in balance. And sometimes we're better at it than others. But there's some rituals that we can do to really look at how to create more balance in our lives. The first thing, as you can see with the scale, is we have to look at, we're all in the spiritual world, all about this lightness and this brightness, but there's also darkness that we need to look at. We need to look at the opposite if we're going to be in balance. And so we need to look and go within. I think a lot with this COVID time, we've had a lot of time to go within since March, even during our summer season. But this is really a time to spiritually go within and reassess, where am I not in balance? That's a really good question to ask right now. Where I'm not in balance. And for me, this time of year used to always bring a sadness and a depression because I'm a gardener. And when I would know, and the clock is just ticking here, to when the first frost will happen and my flowers will droop and fade and die, like this sweet little calendula, I believe. I have to be ready for that. And I'm doing better with that than I used to. It used to be really hard. I would just say, okay, my life's over for 6 months. I'm just going to go hibernate and not find any joy because I can't garden. I could take care of some houseplants inside, but, I couldn't do my gardening that I love outdoors. But now I'm learning that that's part of it. The earth needs this resting time. My plants need this resting time. The energy all goes into the roots and gathers for next year's season and next year's growth. And there's something to say about, we can't have the light without the dark. That saying that we can appreciate the light without the dark. So I think I appreciate my garden more because I have that quieting time, that downtime, as I wait for spring to come back. That down. Oh, Neshi says, oh my goodness, I love your drum behind you. Yes, Neshi, I switched out my studio just a little bit, and I really like it. I'm glad you like it too. For balance here in Loveland, Colorado right now, we are experiencing a lot of fires, and I just moved here. I've only been here about almost a year and a half, maybe. Never experienced this in Michigan. We had tornadoes and we had lots of storms and rain and flooding, but we never had fires. And so this is new for me to learn what this is about and how do I balance this in my life. We have the Cameron fire that is, it's near Fort Collins is 20 miles north of me, and the fire is 40 miles west of Fort Collins in the mountains in the National Forest area. I saw today that it's at the border of my beloved Rocky Mountain National Park. That's where I took a group of travelers last year. Nessie was with me. And the fire is visible from the Trail Ridge Road at night. You can see the red embers. You can see it burning. And it's, a test of faith for me to stand here and be holding space for all the fires. There's 5 or 6 major fires in Colorado and many more in California happening right now. But to be present on the land that it's happening on, and to really be in communication with the fire elementals and the water elementals and find out what's happening. And every time I tune in, they tell me to just relax and it's okay. I do know that it's supposed to rain today and for the next few days, and I'm hoping that there'll be created some balance there with the fires for Rocky Mountain and for all the fires. But I'm monitoring Estes Park and Rocky Mountain National Park because I'm closest to that energy, and praying for rain. So I'll ask for all of you to pray for a nice, gentle, and steady rain to fall over the next few days. Thanks. So I was talking about, celebration of equinox being the light and the dark. And, there's a lot of, from this time on, there's a lot of different celebrations for the dark and death. I was looking at the Day of the Dead, October 31st, the day right after Halloween. They celebrate those loved ones that have passed on. So there's a need to go within, a need to look at where you could be out of balance, to look at that dark side of what may be causing or assisting you to be out of balance. And really, really looking at that. There's a lot to learn from assessing yourself in that very deep way. And there'll be some some ceremony that I'll be sharing with you later today that will actually physically you will be doing that. So I'm excited to share that with you. So this time of year is also, I chose to do a show on the autumnal equinox, but it's also called, same day, same time, Meban in the Celtic tradition, in the Celtic wheel. And so you can see it here on, I think it's your left side of your screen. Meban is in September, and it's a traditional time of honoring the changing of the seasons, which is really what we're doing as a nature connected being, is following and watching the changing of the seasons here. And it's also in Meban, it's used as a time to give thanks, a time for gratitude for the harvest. Hi, Pat McDonald. It's good to see you. I'm so glad you're here too. So Meban is about the harvest time, and one of the first rituals or ceremonies, or whatever you want to call it, you could do is set up a Meban altar. And a Meban altar, Meban or Meban, you can say it either way, is all of those earth tone colors, those autumn colors. And they also on their altars use a lot of light, because we're symbolizing that balance of light and dark. So we're using candles to symbolize the light will return. It always does. But we have our harvest here. We have in this photo, I think I'll give it a solo because it's so pretty. So beautiful. We have the peanuts, the legumes from the ground, from the earth. We have the squash and the vegetables, the abundance that is coming forth from our gardens right now. Oh boy, mine is just full of tomatoes and squash and pumpkins right now. It almost gets to be like too much, too soon, too fast. So I'm looking for homes for all of my squash. And down at the community garden, we're doing a lot of sharing with, oh, you know, you have this, you have butternut squash, I have spaghetti squash, let's share. It's very fun. And sunflowers. Sunflowers are blooming everywhere here in Colorado. I found out that sunflowers are like a native flower that just grows here on the side of the road. It's all over the paths here where I live, and they're beautiful. And I have one growing in my garden plot, and it must be 20 feet tall. I kid you not. It must be 20 feet tall. I can't even hardly reach them to pick them, but that's why I left it in my garden plot, so I could pick them and have bouquets for this harvest time of year. So you could have corn, you could have wheat and grains, and of course the leaves and the changing colors of the leaves. All of that can be part of your Mebon altar. But I love the candles. I love almost the chakrite colors of these candles in this photograph. Take that down. So like I said, it's a time of giving thanks of the abundance and our blessings. In Mebon, they celebrate for 10 days. They start on September 20th, before the equinox, include the equinox, and then move through the 29th. And paying respects to the coming darkness. So they're aware that this time between equinox and the winter solstice is the darkest period of time, when we have the longest nights. And so they're preparing for that, and they're honoring it, and they're stepping into it in a whole different way than we might think of as, oh, summer's over, darn, you know, what are we going to do? It's going to get cold, and we're going to be inside, and life's not fun anymore. But it can be. It really can be, if you go at it with a different attitude. For me, it's about hot chocolate and blankets and movies and fires and candles. I love lighting candles every night at dinner, in the fall time, the winter time, and reading and doing puzzles. And there's just a whole lot of that, winding down and cozying up and staying warm for me. Other pieces that you can do for on your altar are using the stones. I read this, using stones ruled by the sun can help bring the sun's energy closer to you. So stones such as clear quartz, amber, peridot, diamond, gold, citrine, yellow topaz, cat's eye, and adventuring are all appropriate stones to put on your Mebon altar. So you could have the flowers, you could have the fruits and the vegetables and the grains and the stones. And a lot of times at this time of year, I'll just put a whole nature altar and just keep adding pieces to it that I think of or that I find. If I find, you know, beautiful leaves out in nature, I'll bring them in, or twigs or stones. But think about all those beautiful gemstones you have in those nature colors for autumn, the golds and the reds, the deep burgundies. Beautiful stones for your altar. Here's another photo I found of the abundance altar, which I'm giving it a solo itself too. So beautiful. So grapes and apples, all those that fruit that's all abundant at this time of year, and all those earth tone colors. Pat McDonald says, thank you for sharing this beautiful info about Mebon. Oh, you're welcome, Pat. I love it. I had so much fun doing research for this show. There were so many beautiful, beautiful photographs that I could use. It's hard to decide. So now I want to share with you something. Oh, I have so much to share. So the cornucopia, that symbol that we often see at Thanksgiving, but we can start it here at the equinox. But I want to talk a little bit more about that letting go piece, that dark side of the balance, the dark. So in order for there to be life, there must be death. And during this time, we can celebrate and honor that which must die before we have a rebirth. And so, like I said, one of the pieces that I have to let go and die are all of my annuals and beautiful colors and flowers that will die at the first frost here. But it's also time to look at what you could let go of right now. It's an awesome time for clutter clearing, if you think about it. It's a really good time to purge, let go. We are going to be spending more time indoors. And so, if you haven't done your COVID clutter clearing, I know a lot of you have done this already, but it's time maybe to look at it again, because there's always another layer of clearing, even if it's pieces that it's not the closet, the visible pieces, but maybe it's your desktop. Oh, I know my photographs could be organized and cleared. I have so many, and just making things easier to find. So think about where you could do another layer of clearing, another layer of clutter, releasing in your life. Again, to represent bringing in more balance, bringing in order in another way. Could be through clutter clearing. So a gardener, scientist, researcher, who's near and dear to my heart, is a woman named Michelle Smallwright. And some of you may know her from her work in the Perelandra gardens that she's created in West Virginia. And I've talked about her before on my show when we talked about the elementals and talking with the nature spirits and such, which her gardens are all about. And she works in co-creation with nature every day. And something that she has studied at Perelandra and has shared with the world, and this is over 20 years of research that she's done, is that she has found that there's an actual cycle of energy that happens in the garden, and she's had it measured. She's actually had soil scientists come in to her garden, and using radionics, they measure the life vitality of the soil, and they can tell what level the soil is at. And doing this research over several years, they've found that there is a cycle of energy that happens in the garden, and I have a chart for that. So the autumnal equinox solstice life vitality release pattern. So at the precise moment of the equinoxes and the solstices, the scientists measured release of energy. Life vitality was released at the precise time of the equinoxes and the solstices. And as you can see at the fall equinox time, we have the lowest amount of energy that's released into the garden. And then as we go to winter solstice and we build a little more, and then up to the spring equinox, we're building to accumulate in the summer solstice, which has the highest energy vitality that's in the soil. And then it starts to fall. And so by the fall equinox, we're all the way back down to the lowest measurement of life vitality. And so the gardens have their own ebb and fall of energy. And she determined, and she said that I really thought this was true, but I had to have it measured by the radionic specialist, and then I knew for sure. She had a big inkling that the new year for the garden's energy was actually at the autumnal equinox, not at the winter solstice, not in the spring when people think, oh, that's when things start and things start to grow. You would naturally think that, but it's about this autumn time, this fall time. And for me, it's always made sense when I learned that from her, because think about what the plant's doing right now. It's putting all of its energy into the seed for next year. So that life force is not going into the flowers or the leaves anymore. It's going into creating that seed. And that seed is that tiny piece of life force vitality that rests and sits in the winter, right? Incubates, but it's growing in energy. And then in the spring, we plant it, and then it grows into a plant. And think about the energy there that it takes to grow from that seed into that plant. And then to have that plant bloom, blossom, create its abundance in the summer. That's the high energy. And then we're winding back down, creating our seeds again. So there is a pure cycle that happens. The woman's name is Michelle Small-Wright. I have her, thank you for reminding me, I have her website here. I'll put it up. So at paralandralimited.com, and there's a plethora of information on this website, but you will, if you go to this website and you look up the autumnal equinox, you'll find the information about how she measured this life vitality research that she did. Neshi says, I wonder, well, let me take this down so I can put this up. It's easier to read it on the screen. Wow, I wonder if the Celtic and pagans New Year is at the fall equinox. I don't know, Neshi. I don't know that I've ever heard them talk about a new year, but I would think they would be tuned into that cycling as well. Although at winter solstice, they do a lot of ritual for rebirth because they're celebrating that sun coming back. So I'm not sure. Good question. So I want to share with you, if you don't go to Michelle's site, her ritual that she does for all the equinoxes and solstices. You can do it. It's the same for all of them except for your intention. And so she finds out the exact time that the equinox or solstice will be. Now we know in Eastern time it will be 9:30 in the morning on the 22nd of September. So there's your time. She does a meditation 15 minutes before and 15 minutes after. So for a half an hour, she's spending time in what she says is focusing your attention on kind of the changing of the guard, focusing your attention and observing the moment of, of the equinox, of when that energy exchange infusion happens. So, meditating what's happening at this time in the earth cycles, just really tuning in and being there with the earth to think about this moment in time. And then on the precise moment, she said, sometimes I do this, sometimes I haven't been able to, but if you can, light a candle. I know my friend and friend of Star Nations, Sharon Rosenblum, always lights a candle right at that precise moment. And I have done that several times, and feels very powerful to be part of that energy lighting for the new year. So you can light a candle. You can ring a bell. Now I've got my beautiful space clearing bell, and I've done that before. You can ring a bell and mark that. Any way that you want to observe that. And Michelle says, it will happen without you there. It'll happen no matter if you're there or not. It will happen, but you get to be a witness and observe the earth doing her thing at that time. So I think it's pretty cool to be a part of that. Oh, thank you, Neshi, for putting in Michelle Small Rights information. I think I'll just put it in right now so you can see. Her name, Michelle, is spelled a little different than Michelle's that you're used to. So there you go. So the next piece I'd like to share with you is there's a special Greek mythology story that speaks about this time of year, and a special fruit actually that is revered, the pomegranates and the pomegranate seeds. So it's the story of Persephone, and it's part of Greek mythology. And I just wanted, it's not a very long story, I just want to read this story to you because it's about marking of the cycles of earth, and in Greek mythology their explanation for why we have the seasons that we do. Once there was a beautiful young girl named Persephone. Her mother, Demeter, was the goddess of all growing things. Demeter and her daughter lived in a world where it was always summer. Green things were always blooming, and the sun shone warm and sweet. One day, while she was out picking flowers with her friends, Persephone felt a trembling beneath her feet and heard a rumbling. And the ground split open, and Hades, god of the underworld, appeared driving a chariot. And he snapped Persephone up, and he took her back in the earth with him. The ground closed up around with a huge roar, and all that was left of Persephone was a bunch of flowers on the ground. Demeter searched everywhere, but she could not find her daughter. For days she looked, and days. Her grief was so great that the earth began to grow cold, and all the green things died. There was no food, and terrible hunger came to the people. In the underworld, meanwhile, Persephone came to see that Hades wasn't as scary as she first thought. He had been so lonely in the underworld. He told her of his longings to keep her there with him. Persephone missed her mother and the bright world above, but her new status as queen of the underworld and her love for Hades gave her reason to stay with him. She believed that she had important work to do deep under the ground. Persephone knew that if she ate or drank anything in the underworld, she would have to stay there forever. Even though Hades begged her to have just a sip or one bite of food, she didn't. Demeter had finally learned where Persephone was. She insisted that she be returned to her. Hades sadly hitched his horses to his chariot and prepared to take Persephone back. But before they left, he offered Persephone one last thing to eat, a ripe, blood-red pomegranate. Looking him in the eye, Persephone took 6 seeds and ate them. They went back above the ground, up through a crack in the earth. Persephone drew herself into her mother's arms, joyous to be reunited. And the earth again grew rich with flowers, and the sun shone once more. But because Persephone had eaten 6 pomegranate seeds, it was decided that for 6 months of each year she must return to the underworld with Hades on, and the winter would come to the world. In spring, she would once again return to her mother, allowing the earth to bloom. So that's the story of Persephone. Here's one artist rendering I found of Hades offering her the pomegranate seeds. Do a solo on that one. So it's, it sounds like she took them willingly. And there's one line of this story when she's deciding if she wants to stay underground or not, that she believes she had important work to do deep under the ground. Do we all have important work to do deep underground, deep within us? It's a thought. I like that story, and I love pomegranates. Do you guys like pomegranates? Anybody in the chat room like pomegranates? They're one of my favorite colors, that blood red. So, no, she says, I love that story of Persephone. So do I. So good. So, ways to celebrate the equinox. One way when I lived in Michigan that I would celebrate the equinox would be to gather my friends, and we would go for a sunrise gathering, a sunrise ceremony at the Stone Circle in Portland, Michigan. There happened to be a stone circle 5 minutes from my house. I do believe that Stone Circle called me to that house to purchase that house because I knew it was there till after we bought the house. In fact, Neshi and my sister Christine are the ones that saw it first for me and let me know it was there the day after I moved. So thank you. So many celebrations of equinoxes and solstices had happened in that stone circle. And I would choose, instead of choosing to do the time of the equinox, we would just greet the sun every ceremony. So we would gather, and the autumnal equinox was always one of the best because the sun rose a little later and it was warmer. It's a lot warmer than it had been. So it's a little easier to be there. But we would watch the sun come up in the stone circle because the stone circle was set up to honor the equinoxes and solstices. So much like Stonehenge and different Newgrange in Ireland and Stonehenge in England, they're set up to honor these cycles, these earth cycles. And so the sun would come in the equinox, the sun would come between two stones. It would come up in the stone circle, and then on the summer solstice and the winter solstice, it would come up right in the middle behind one of the stones that was set there. So it was always interesting and fun to mark that with a gathering. And we'd also set up an altar there. Here's one of the altars I found a picture of that we set up for an autumnal equinox with, flowers, the abundance of the garden. What was happening in the garden at that time? I just go out and pick the abundance there. So a candle and flowers. And there was always tobacco and cornmeal that we would leave for offerings for the stone circle. So if you have a place like that near you that's already been marked as a sacred place, then you could choose to do ceremony there, or any place that you're connected to that you love. It doesn't have to have stone circle. It could just be a beautiful place on the land that you enjoy spending time with. You could call up your friends and say, hey, you want to meet me there for like this year, you could meet for the exact time of the equinox, come about, an hour or half hour earlier, and have that 15 minutes of meditation time before, light the candle 15 minutes after. Very simple ceremony, but very doable this year. I mean, 9:30, that's great. Yeah. So that's an idea. Just giving you ideas today. Watching my time. Another piece that I want to share with you that I will be doing this year, and I do this I've done it almost every autumn time, around this time. I can't say that I've always done it on the equinox, but I do it in the fall when I feel the weather turning, and I know I can feel that the longer days coming, but we'll have like a super sunny, warm day in there. Like it's been maybe 40s or 50s, and all of a sudden that day's 70s. And that would be the day that I would choose to do this ceremony. But it's very, very much connected for me to the energies of the equinox. And it's called an active power ceremony. And I have written about this ceremony in for my article for the magazine, for the Star Nations magazine, that will be coming, the next magazine that will be coming out on the 10th of September. Yeah, I just turned my article in this week. So I did that on purpose so you would have time. Like I did this show early, so you would have time to prepare, but I wanted that article to come out before the equinox, so you would have all the instructions and the visuals there for you about how to do this ceremony. And I'm going to walk you through just real simply what I do and why here on the show. But if you want more details, they'll all be in the article next month in the magazine. Oh my gosh. Pat McDonald says that she lives in Michigan and must make a trip to Portland. It's not far from where I live. Oh, Pat, you would love it. Any time of the year, go. It's in the Bogue Flats Recreation Area. If you want, some more detailed directions, just email me, and I'll give you some more information. But it's not hard to find. But it's right across from a ball field, which is very interesting. But it's in an arboretum that they've planted there, so it's really beautiful. In fact, this summer when I went back, that's where I chose to meet all my friends that I miss so much, and we did a little COVID forest therapy walk there because I couldn't meet everybody in their houses. So this active power ceremony comes from an author and spiritual teacher named Lynn Andrews. Some of you may remember her. She was one of the first authors that I got really excited about. She worked wrote about her experiences with Agnes and Ruby, two Native American elders. Jaguar Woman was one of her books. I'm not remembering the other three. There's several books, but one that I love that she wrote later on, after those books, is called Teaching Around the Sacred Wheel, Finding the Soul of the Dream Time. So, Teachings Around the Sacred Wheel. I should have put that put it in here. Teachings around Sacred Wheel. Teachings Around the Sacred Wheel. And it's full of hands-on. Okay, that didn't print where I thought it was. Sorry. Maybe Neshi, could you put that in for me? Oh, here it comes. There's just a delay. I forget about that. It's not automatic. So this book is more like set up like a workbook. So there's places to write in it. And I am so darn happy that I wrote in it, because the first time I did this ceremony was like 33 years ago, like 1986 or whatever it was. And I have it written in here. It's pretty darn cool. No, 92, sorry. I did it in October of 92. And since then, I've put pieces of paper in of the ceremonies I've done since then, and they're in there. So it's like a memory box to go back and see where I was at and what was happening in my life, and what I was letting go of and what I was calling in, because that's what this piece is about. You make these, they're called life prayer arrows and death prayer arrows. So you make one of each. And what you do on the life prayer arrow is you write down 10 things that you plan on accomplishing that year. 10 things that will move your spiritual path forward. This, she calls this an active power ceremony. A way doing these ceremonies lays your spiritual foundation. It grounds you in the physical world with your spiritual work. So 10 things that you will do in this year's cycle. So from Mabon to Mabon, from equinox to equinox, you will do these. And you write them on a piece of paper, and you wrap them up around a stick and tie them. And then you can tie ribbons on the ends and however you want to decorate them. And that becomes why they look like an arrow, because they have like little streamers happening on the ends of them. And so you do one for your life prayer arrow list, and then you do one called your death prayer arrow list. And that death list, you write down everything, every belief that has gotten in your way of accomplishing those life arrow goals. Everything that you perceive has gotten in the way. A lot of times for me, it's not enough money, not good enough, not courageous enough, whatever it is. Writing those things down, and looking back from the 1992 one, that was way before I was doing any work with feng shui. I've never written books, never that self would have never dreamed that I would be hosting my own show on an internet radio show. No, that person would say no way. And the author of 2 books, no way. Back then, because the limiting beliefs I had was that wasn't possible. I couldn't do that. So writing down these limiting beliefs and wrapping them up, again, making your little arrow out of them, and having them ready for your ceremony. And then you there's a whole lot to this. Like I said, it will be in the magazine, but you're creating sacred space. You're making these bundles, spirit of place bundles, because you're enlisting the spirits of place to assist you in the work that you're asking, in the work that you're doing here, in the energy that you're grounding for the new year with your life arrow and the energy of release. So there's your light and your dark in this ceremony. And so you use these spirit of place bundles, and your your um, your death arrow, you will set up a sacred site and you will read that out loud, and then you will burn it in that place and you will bury it. And I always burn mine. You want to burn it in a fire safe container. And this year I'll be using my prayer urn. We've seen my prayer urn here before in the show because I had the picture in here. But you want to burn it in a fire safe piece, or a crock or something like that. But and then you leave that site, you close it up, and then you go to a site that, so this site is at the bottom of a hill. Then you go to the top of a hill with your life arrow, and you create sacred space. You read that out loud, call out that energy in, and asking for assistance again from the land and the ancestors and all that's there. And then with that life arrow list, you can leave it there, tie it into a tree or a bush. Let it kind of just hang out in the wind, so that energy can travel. I've also brought that home and put it in a sacred place in my garden, in a special bush or shrub, and it's really fun to see it throughout the year when I notice it. So this is a sacred ceremony that you would do on land that you love, on a place that you love. I have been instructed to do it in my garden this year. It's more of a suburban space that I normally do. I usually go out into the woods, or I'm in a grassy field somewhere or something. But this year they want me to do it in my garden because they want me to anchor this energy in my garden as well. So know that you can do it in the city, you can do it in the country. You would do it on a balcony. I could see you doing it on a balcony. I'll be doing it on my garden and my porch, which is not very large here in Colorado. And I'm really, really excited, and the land is very excited for me to be doing sacred ceremony here at the house. So that's one piece that you can do. It's hard for me to explain it all. It probably needed its own show, but that's why it's got its own article in the magazine where I explain it very much in depth for you there. So another piece that you can do for this time of year, as we talked about letting go, is that journaling, and it's another way to let go, is shedding what no longer serves you, making room for the rebirth that is to come. So some writing prompts for journaling might be, and I really love this question, where am I experiencing a sense of imbalance, and why do I feel that way? So really sitting in meditation with your notebook and your pen and asking, where do I feel out of balance and why? And just writing that down. You're going to get a lot of clarity about what's going on in your life right now when you do that. Another question that you could ask at this journaling time could be, what can I release that no longer serves me? It's like the clutter clearing of the mind and the clutter clearing of the beliefs. What can I release that no longer serves me? And again, you have the energies of the equinox to assist you with this, because the earth is doing that right now too. It's just letting go, and the energy is winding down. So use that. And then, what goals do I have for the year to come? Like your life prayer arrow. What goals do I have for the year to come? So it could be as simple as sitting down with those 3 questions. I'll say them again. Where am I experiencing a sense of imbalance? And why do I feel that way? What can I release that no longer serves me? And what goals do I have for the year that is to come? Those are great questions to ask yourself. So this topic is deep and rich, as you can see. It can be full of celebrations and ceremonies if you choose. And, as simple as making an altar with the fall harvest to doing a full-on act of power ceremony out in your favorite forest. I would love to hear what you do and how you do it. Or it may be that you sit quietly and do a meditation and ask yourself those questions. Or at 9:30 in the morning Eastern Standard on the 22nd of September, you light a candle at exactly that moment, 9:30, and honor and witness that cycle of Mother Earth. So I'm going to wind up for now for the show. I do want to say that my Nature Adventures trip to Scotland has been rescheduled. And with all light and love and power of the universe, we're going to get there in May 17th to the 29th of 2021. So I have 3 openings left for that. I had 1 fill yesterday. So I have 3 spots left. We're taking a total of 16 people. So if you're interested, you need to sign up quickly and save your space for that trip that will be all about going to sacred places, sacred sites, stone circles. We'll be doing forest therapy. We'll be doing ceremony. We'll be tuning into the elementals of the earth and the devas and the fairies. And so if that is of interest to you, to go with like-minded people, and the people that I travel with are always amazing. They're such amazing people just to have a conversation with. Please go to my website. Let me get that up here. MinnieKansman.com. Pretty simple. myname.com. You can read all about the trip, and you can always connect with me if you want to know more about it or have any questions. I'll be happy to answer them. And I just want to thank you for being here and listening today, being on the show, and for listening. If you're listening into the archives, the recorded show, that makes me really happy too. And I love talking once a month to you about what I'm passionate about nature. And so until next time, may you feel the blessings of nature that she offers to you all around you every day. Blessings be. Bye for now.